All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome to our health or our zero energy homes talk. Today is about windows. So, picking out windows for a new home and an existing home is also important, but today we're just going to focus on a new home. So, and how those windows can impact the energy use in the home. So you want to make sure you're doing a good job of window selection so that you aren't needing your heating and your cooling system to run longer to produce more energy for the heat loss that goes through windows. So generally, depending on where you are, there's different best practices. I'm just going to refer to Oregon and what I typically recommend people here to install. So there's different, if you look on a window, there's a label and there are different numbers on there and different ratings. So you have to look at that. And there's a couple on there that will help you figure out what type of window, finding a higher performance window. So one of the main ones is the U factor. So U factor is kind of like R value of wall insulation, but it's like basically the U factor is the inverse of the R value. So you can convert the U value into an R value by just taking it and taking the inverse of that. So for example, a 0.25 window, which has a U value of 0.25, the R value would be R4. So just it's the opposite. So anyway, so 0.25 U value is a pretty good rating for a window, and so that's an R value of 4, and that's, pretty about one of the lowest options you're going to get for a double pane window with coatings on it. So you might be able to get to 0.24, something like that, depending on the operation of the window. So like a fixed window, you can get, it's just fixed, there's no opening. So that has a better seal, obviously, than one that can open. So you can get lower U values on that just inherently because the window doesn't open up. So you might be able to get down to like a 0.24, maybe a little bit lower in a double pane. And then the next tightest window style are going to be casements and awnings, because they have they're like compression close. So when you're closing the window, there's a gasket and it compresses against the frame. So those are going to give you better U values. Again, so better U values are going to be lower numbers, and it's all going to be a U value of 1 or less. So yeah, so generally try to find something that's like a 0.25 if you're in a climate like Oregon, and obviously Oregon has a bunch of different climate areas, but that's kind of a general best practice. Try to find the best U value, lowest U value for a double pane window that you can get. So, and that is going to, the U value, like the R value is resistance to heat flow, and so then use the opposite. So it's going to be how much heat can be let through the window. So it relates to wintertime heat loss. So how much heat from your house is moving through the window and getting outside. A lot of that's like through conduction. So yeah, so U value. So finding something that's close to 0.25, and then another important number on the window is the solar heat gain coefficient, so SHGC, and that relates to summer heat gain from the outside. So how much the window can block that heat gain from the outside. So in a newer construction house that's being built very airtight and then controlling with ventilation where the amount of air that's coming in and out, it's important to have a lower number for the solar heat gain coefficient, so you're not letting in too much heat during the summertime. So some passive solar ideas are to let some heat gain in for the winter months, but you have to be really careful in the summer months that you're not letting too much heat in. And so you can do that by having a lower solar heat gain coefficient number, or you can also do that, or you can do it with things like deciduous trees or awnings or shutters, something that's going to be able to shade your windows. So, if you're looking at shutters or something that's going to cover up your window during the daytime, then you won't really be able to see out of it. So if you're not there and you don't need to be able to see out, then maybe that's a good option for you. So that's just one thing to consider whenever you are going to be adding shade to your windows. Or, if you're planting trees, if you have views that you really enjoy year round, then, you don't want to be necessarily blocking those with trees. So maybe an awning is a better option. So it just kind of depends on your site and where you are. So other things to consider than just the window rating. But those are the two biggest things in the windows to look for, are the U value and the solar heat gain coefficient. So the other thing, as we've been selecting our windows, another thing to sort of plan for is to, as much as possible, have fixed windows where you can, because again, those are going to be the most efficient windows since they're going to have the least amount of air leakage through them. So try to do that, and then pick the next type of window that I would recommend are doing casement or awning windows, because again, they're compression closed. And then the sort of I don't know what to say. The windows that are going to be the least airtight are going to be ones like sliders, like the side-to-side slider, or a single hung or double hung windows. So those, try to minimize as much as you can. We are going to have a mix of, I think, all of those types of windows in our house. We have a few slider windows for egress reasons. And then we're doing some fixed windows and some awnings. Awnings are nice because you can have them open when it's raining out. So if you still want to have fresh air ventilation just naturally from windows, that's a nice option to have awnings. So yeah, what else? There's a couple of other numbers on the window labels. One is the visible light transmittance, and so that's going to vary depending on the window, and with more coatings that number will go down, which means there's less visible light going through, but generally it's not really going to impact the visibility as much. One thing that's another consideration for how much light you can see through and what it looks like to see through the window is, of course, the screen. So we've learned that there's different screen types that, will allow you to sort of like see through the mesh easier, so you don't notice it as much. So that's another factor that I hadn't really thought about that much of. So there's screen material. And of course, with a fixed window, you won't have a screen. So those are ones you'll have a lot more visible light through those. And then they do have an air leakage number as well on the window, but again, generally this is not as critical of a number as the other ones. So yeah, you can get a pretty good performing double pane window that has a U value of 0.25 and a solar heat gain coefficient of 0.25, and be good to go from there. Obviously, I keep saying obviously, it's going to depend on your window manufacturer, what's available locally. So looking into triple pane window options is going to help make those numbers lower. So you just have to see what is going to be the best fit for your situation. So we actually got a window quote for double pane and triple pane windows, and the triple pane windows were not that much more than double pane. So we might decide to go with those. I'm still doing some more research into the different coatings that go on them and how that all impacts the heat loss and heat gain during the different times of the year. So I will probably have some more updates about that once we learn more. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Oh, wait, not it. So we could talk about frame material as well. So we're mainly talking about the glass when you're talking about double or triple pane, but the frame material also makes a difference. So the most cost-effective frames are typically made out of vinyl, and which is an okay frame. It has more susceptibility to expansion and contraction, so it moves a lot more with heat and cold. And so you want to make sure when you are installing them that you are doing a good job and making sure that your sealant is some kind of elastomeric caulk to make sure that that seal is going to be durable over time, so that around the perimeter of your window you're not going to have air leaks there. So that's one thing that's not really a window thing, it's an install thing that you need to think about, is how well it actually gets installed. So vinyl, and then there are fiberglass windows. So that's most likely what we are going to be using in our house. So fiberglass is more stable in temperature ranges, and you can also, it's usually available in more colors than vinyl is. Yeah, it's a good, I've used them on my tiny house and I really liked them. So it's one of the more preferred options as far as, not having much conduction through the frame, or as much as, say, like an aluminum frame window. So there are like spacers that they are using in the frames, but still, like, aluminum is not as great for energy savings as like fiberglass is. Aluminum can be good for fire areas, so that's, a consideration if you're in a pretty high fire risk area. Maybe doing an aluminum frame makes more sense to you, and you just, make up for the energy in another aspect of your house. And then what else? There's like composite windows that are a mixture of like vinyl or fiberglass and wood. So, I don't know as much about those, but there was one line that was like a mix of fiberglass and wood. So it's kind of like, something that has a little bit of both options. And like, I think the paintability is really like how the wood makes it a more valuable product, because you can, again, have more color options. But that's not a type of window I know as much about. So definitely, if you're looking for windows, you can see what's out there and see what makes the most sense for you. There also are like wood clad, or like fiberglass clad wood windows and aluminum clad wood windows. We were advised not to use any kind of wood for our house because of the ICF blocks and the moisture the concrete can hold over time. So I don't, I think that's more of a, like, when you're building the house and the concrete takes like a year or so to fully cure. So we're not on a really fast time frame for our house build. So I think they probably could be okay, but because we have really deep windows, we're going to be trimming them out anyway with whatever we decide. So it might be wood. So just doing something simple like a fiberglass window makes a lot of sense. And then we can just trim out the whole frame on the inside however we want to later. So yeah, frames. So, I think that's going to be it for now. So if you are thinking about building a new house and you need help with trying to navigate the windows, again, it's probably best to talk to your window rep, but I can also help field questions about like what might make the most sense for your situation. It definitely, the other thing I was going to talk about is just designing in general, to have about 15% of your wall to to floor area to be 15%, your windows to be 15%. So around that number. So if you have more windows, then you're going to have less of your wall insulation, and that really impacts, I've seen it really impact the energy model, and then in turn that'll impact your day-to-day energy bills. So anyway, trying to get fewer windows that are carefully placed is the best sort of design practice. So anyway, lots of things to consider. Okay, all right, I'm done. All right, we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.